If you want to study Africa and you want it to be profoundly affected by Africa, you don't eat Africa whole. You take the very best. That is why our lectures deal with the golden threads from Africa. That's why Egypt became great. Egypt drew on the finest things out of Africa. Its hieroglyphs, you could see, you could trace it back in various parts of Africa. You could see the various forms, the animals, etc., the religious ideas. We are now startled to find, when we look at Egyptian ideas of creation, and ideas of creation among the Dogon, ideas of creation among the Bambara, we begin to see the fantastic sophistication involved. The idea that after the primal matter, that there was a growth, a flowering towards consciousness, and that there emerged this incredible power that was the center of consciousness, God, who then reconstituted matter and gave a direction. And the form, the things that before were formless, things that before that were directionless. And you hear in the Egyptian the beautiful poetry when God speaks, I am the morning of times. There is no parallel for that in any other creation story. And they had this tremendous understanding which grew over centuries of settled life. They were the first to enter agricultural settlements. They were the first to domesticate cattle. So there is no backwardness in the African. The tragedy is that we have become so colonized in our imagination. Here is where the colonies are. Because even when some of us have a certain measure of freedom, it is far from total. But even when we have a certain measure of freedom, we would prefer to use a crutch. I can't do anything, man. Don't you see how rough it is here, man? They control everything. And if ever the avenue arose, if ever there was a road, we would not energize ourselves to take that path. To use Farrakhan's phrase, they gave you freedom and you didn't even take a walk. So we have got to use this as power. Ideas are force. That is the vitality. Matter is nothing. It is the spirit. It is this fantastic thing that spins around matter, that turns it around, that gives it power, form, force. That's how the universe was born. God is force. God is power. God is form. God takes that primal matter and reconstitutes it. That's what we do as men, as women. That is what you do in life. You have this thing here, and you do with it what can give direction and beauty and form and morality. So when we go back into history, let us draw upon these essences so that they fill us with a new force. Because it is with this new force, the force that came with the Moors who were to transform the world, both in North Africa. It didn't just end in Europe. When Leo Africanus went down in the 16th century, when all Europe thought that after the slave trade was breaking up and devastating things, that Africa was a wild world, Leo Africanus went down and wrote his marvelous geography and history of Africa, which Shakespeare read. That's why Shakespeare produced the noble Moor, the very best. And then he showed how Africa had all of these internal cities and sophistication. And we seem to forget that because the Europeans came, devastated it, all the connections and continuities were shattered. But it is not a lost world, it is not a finished world, it is in us. Nothing is truly lost once we remember it, once we can reconstitute it, once we can turn it into force in our lives. That, therefore, is our mission. That is the magic and the meaning of the Moors, to be able to draw upon that very special experience, that great conquest, that enabled them to transform both Africa and Europe. I want to close by saying, and this is something that reminds me very much of Césaire in his great poem, Return to My Native Land, as he ends with these words, or words similar to these. It is not out of hatred or envy of any race that I proclaim the greatness of my own. It is because I know that no race has a monopoly of genius, intelligence, invention. It is because I know that the race of man is far from finished, that there remains a great deal to be done in the world. The race of man is only just beginning, and there is room for all of us at the rendezvous of history. Thank you.